Hi, and happy Monday. I'm Janet Leonard. I'm the founder and CEO of Virtual Instructor. And every Monday, I do a 15-minute live on some little tip or trick with some software or website, that sort of thing, just to help you get your work done faster and move on to more exciting things, right? So today we're going to talk about working with graphics in Word documents. So if you've had to work with graphics before, sometimes it can get a little frustrating when you're doing editing. So I want to show you some little tricks that you can do. Hey, Terry, nice to see you. So I'm going to pop on over, and the first thing I'll do is just a little housekeeping to let you know what's coming up. So if you like these Monday lives, you can always get an email reminder 1 hour before. That's the only time we send it. We don't, send lots of emails. And on our website, virtualinstructor.com, you just go over to the Monday live calendar. So you can see today we're going to talk about graphics in Word. And next week, I'm going to talk about some animation tricks in PowerPoint. And then the following week, I'll talk about some tips and tricks for creating charts in Excel. But you can also use a lot of those tips and tricks when you're in PowerPoint and Word, and even if you wanted to put a chart in, say, Outlook. All right, enough of that. Let's get over to Word. And you can see my screen. It's a blank document right now. And if you've been watching any of my Monday lives when I'm dealing with Word, there's a little trick. It's called an Easter egg that if you just want to have some text to play with, you just type in equal, then RAND, that stands for random, open and close parentheses. And then as soon as you hit enter, you get some text to play with. So here's some text that we can play with. And now I'm going to pull in some graphics to show you some tricks. So I'll just move to the beginning of this paragraph right now, just as a starting point. There's no trick or anything with that. I'll just go up to insert, and I'm going to go to pictures. And then I'm just going to use the stock images that come with Microsoft. And I was playing around a little bit, and there's some cupcakes that I think I can show you some cool little tricks that you can do. So let's look for cupcakes, if I could spell. And I'm going to bring in this cupcake right. Oh, well, this is pretty cute. I changed my mind. I'm going to bring this one in because that's pretty darn cute. And first of all, I'm just going to resize it. So you can just go to any of the corners when you get on the little circles on the corners, and I'm just going to resize it a little bit, right? Okay, now before I go into, I'm going to show you how you can crop that, also how you could change the background and actually remove some of the background if you wanted to. But right now, I have this document or this graphic, and because I was at the beginning of the second paragraph, that's where my cursor was when I did the insert, Word automatically assumed that I wanted it to kind of be treated like it's a character, even though it's just a graphic. And so it put it right at the beginning of the sentence. Now, if I select that picture, then you'll notice there's a little square here. If I click on that, that brings up different, what they call layout options. And so by default, it assumes that you want it to stay in line with the text, because it might have been, I might make it really tiny, like it's an icon or something. So notice it says in line with text. Now, if you want to do some sort of wrapping, then you have with text wrapping. So if I hover my mouse pointer over this, you can have it wrap as a square. Well, it already is a square, but let's say you had something that was a circle or something, you could make it kind of wrap around, and the text would flow around as a square. It wouldn't get close to the graphic. If I hover over here, this one is a little tighter and it will move closer to the graphic. I'll show you that in just a bit when we remove the background on here. Now, you also have it where the text can go through it. So if you do through it, it's similar to square, but notice as I'm moving it around, it's just kind of moving around through it. And then you have, I actually like this one a lot because you can move it in different paragraphs and stuff. So I actually use that one quite often. Then you also have this one, which is the text goes to the top and bottom. So if I was in a paragraph, see how the text goes to the top and the bottom of it? It doesn't wrap around. Now I'll go to this one, which is where you want it behind the text. This is really good if you wanted like a copyright or something in there. Have your logo so that you don't want somebody to, if they were copying it, they'd still have to see the logo in there. Now, sometimes the problem is, though, if you do that, you're like, well, how do I get to my graphic? Well, here's a little trick for you. On the Home tab, way over toward the right, in what's called the editing group, And depending on the size of your monitor, you might just see a word that says editing. You might have to click on it to get this option. But do you see select there? Then you can select objects. So if you change it to select objects, now you can click on that. So sometimes it's like, how can I get to that thing that's behind the text? Don't panic, just change it to select the objects. Now I'm going to come back over here, and this one is where I'm going to put it in front of the text. So now when you're clicking back into your document, if you want to get back into editing text, just click until you get your cursor back in there. But now, as long as the graphic's in front of the text, then Word most of the time is smart enough to know that this is a graphic. Now I can just move it around. But notice that the text is not wrapping around. All right, so let me put back over to this one right here, which is the text is going to wrap around it. So notice as I'm moving it around, it wraps around, right? All right, now here's a little trick for you. Let's say I like having my graphic. I'm just going to put it over here for now, right? But I want it to always be part of this particular paragraph, so that if I cut this paragraph and I moved it somewhere, the graphic would stay with that paragraph. Right now, it's not going to, because see this tiny little anchor? That tells you that the graphic is anchored to this paragraph right now. So what I can do is I can drag it on down. So now it's anchored to this paragraph. So if I cut this paragraph right now, notice the graphic's gone. I'll move this paragraph. I'll just go in front of the second to the last paragraph. I'll paste it. And now notice that the graphic stayed with it. Now, if I move this, I'm just going to move it up a teeny bit. So let's say it's over on this paragraph. So even though it's floating down here, whoops, see, as you move it, it kind of moves around. I'll just put it back up here. It is actually locked or anchored to this paragraph here. So watch what happens if I go back down to this paragraph that I had cut earlier. And you might notice that it doesn't select the graphic, but I'm going to cut it. The graphic stays where it is. I'll go back over to the first paragraph. I'll paste it right here, delete it. Now, the graphic is still here. If you click on it, you can see it is attached to this paragraph. So again, if I select this paragraph, by the way, see how even though it doesn't look like it's part of that paragraph, it's still selected because it's anchored to that paragraph. So if I cut it, it's gone. I can move somewhere else, paste it, and it's the graphics there, but it's still pretty much proportionally at a little different, a little further down from that paragraph. Okay, so that's one thing that if you don't know about that can drive you up the wall, because you'll think, how come I can't get that graphic to stay with the paragraph? Or why is it moving all the time? So if you're having that problem, look for that little anchor, and that most likely is going to solve your problem. All righty, now I have a few more minutes. I'm going to show you a few other little tricks with graphics. Now this one's really cute, but I don't need this extra area over here. So I'd like to crop this graphic. So what I'll do is, while I have this graphic selected, as long as you have the picture selected, you'll see an option that says picture format. So if I click on that, then way over toward the right is a crop tool. Now you can actually crop it to other shapes, which is kind of cool, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go with the crop tool. Now when you do this, you got to be careful, because if you don't get this, watch as I move my mouse pointer onto that little black arrow, it becomes a tiny little line with a little vertical line attached with it. Now, if that's selected, I'm actually cropping it. But I'll move back over here. If I accidentally get the double-headed arrow, because I'm on that tiny little circle, I'm actually resizing it. See that? So you gotta have to pay attention. So I'm going to get the little crop thing. I'm going to crop it here, and I'm going to crop it down here. Now that doesn't affect the original graphic. I'll just hit the Enter key, or I could click on the crop tool. By the way, if you blow it and you're like, I didn't mean to do that, no biggie. As long as you have it selected, you can go back over to the reset picture and you can reset it. And also if you resized it, you can resize it to its original. But I'm going to keep it like this. All right, so now watch as I'm moving it around, see how the text is adjusting based on wherever I'm moving that, right? Okay, now I'm going to show you another fun little thing. Is what if I decided I didn't want to have that blue background. I just really want the cute little unicorn on the cupcake. So what you can do is while you have it selected, go back up to picture format, and there's this thing called remove background. Now it gets better in every release, but it's not perfect, but it's actually, this one's pretty darn good. So, okay, trust me, it's not always that nice, but it is missing part of the little unicorn, the horn on the unicorn. So I'm going to click on this little mark areas to keep. I got a little pencil and I'm just going to click and hold and drag up to keep that portion of the unicorn. Now, if I don't want this little portion here, I could do remove. And let's see what happens if I start to remove that. I'm going to remove this portion. And I'm going to remove this portion. And it did a pretty good job of removing what I wanted. So I'm just going to keep it here. It's not perfect, but it's pretty darn good. So all I have to do is choose keep changes. And now watch, I can move the little unicorn around. And you can also see that as, well, I don't want to shrink it too much, but notice that the text starts kind of flowing around the unicorn. All right, so then I'm going to do one more thing for you and then we'll wrap up. Just to remind you where I got that, I had the graphic selected and I went up to that remove background. So if you haven't used that before, that's kind of fun. Sometimes it's getting much better than it was in earlier versions, but sometimes it works a little better than others, but this is pretty cute. I'm going to go back over to this layout options here. And I have it right now where it's running, it's kind of going through the graphic. But let's say for some reason, I don't want to have anything on this side of the graphic, but I kind of like how it wraps around here. So you can go back to the same little icon. And if you go down to here where it says see more, it brings you into an area where you can go to the text wrapping. And here are the same options that you had before. By default, it's wrapping on both sides. But I could say, no, I only want it to wrap on the right side. And then I can choose OK. And notice how it only wraps on the right side. So I could move it around if I did this, see how it follows it along. So there are some little tricks. So what you want to do is just start playing with the graphics and don't be afraid of that little icon to see some of the different options that you can use. So hopefully that gives you some ideas on different ways that you can use graphics in Microsoft Word. And the one thing to really remember is pay attention to that little anchor. So if for some reason I like it here, but I don't want it anchored to this paragraph, so that if I happen to edit things, I don't want that to really move around. I can put it back over to here, and remember, then that way it is attached to that particular graphic or that paragraph. Now watch what happens though when I hit enter. See how it kind of moves down? I'm going to now move this paragraph up here. Okay. And there we go. And so see how now it's still kind of staying in the same location. There's a few other little tricks, but I'm running out of time to show you those. So hopefully that will give you some ideas of different ways that you can work with graphics. Again, if I change my mind and I want it to wrap on both sides, I can just click on here, go down to see more, and go to text wrapping. And then I can say I want it to wrap on both sides. And now I have it wrapping on both sides. So hopefully that gave you some ideas. And I'm going to pop back over to this screen over here and say goodbye. I hope you found some little tricks that you can use. And this works with pretty much any drawing or graphic that you would put in your Word documents. Have a great rest of your day. And next week, I'm going to talk about how to add some animation to your PowerPoint presentations. Bye.